Hi, I'm Dana, and you're probably gonna hear my cat washing in this video. I'm sorry, I can't make him stop. He's a cat, that's what he does. But for today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about meltdowns, because I've made a couple of videos in the past about them, but I've been living alone for like 6 months now and things have changed a little bit. But to take it from the start so that this is somewhat of a cohesive video, I had a lot of meltdowns as a child, and they were very obviously meltdowns. Like in my autism assessment, my mum talked about how I would have these temper tantrums that looked just like my autistic brother's meltdowns, and the man doing my assessment was like, well, that's because Dana was likely having meltdowns, like that's why they looked the same, they were the same. And she was just sort of like, oh right, because while my brother was not necessarily babied to, but like if he started having a meltdown, we all had to adjust our behaviour, we had to accommodate to him, we had to make sure it was the right environment for him, we had to try and help him calm down. If that meant everyone but my mum fucks off to their own bedrooms so that he can have 3 hours being cuddled by my mum and watching Star Trek so that he can calm down, then that's what he gets. And there's a level to which I agree with that, and there's the level to which when I had the exact same emotional reaction to very similar things, I was told to stop acting like my brother and go to my room and calm down on my own. And I also quite often had meltdowns before things. Like I always hated school. It was a really horrible fucking environment for me to be in. I was bullied a lot. I really did not have a good time in school. So for a lot of primary school, I would wake up, I would throw up, like I would not be able to help it, and my mum would be like, you're forcing yourself to be sick, and I'd be like, you have watched me literally wake up, open my eyes, rise out of bed and run to the bathroom to start vomiting. Like where did I decide this was what I was going to do? So she'd watch that happen and then be like, you need to go and get into your uniform, and I'd be like, please don't make me get into my uniform. And that's when the meltdown would start, and I would be crying, I would be screaming, and my mother would like, I would either dress myself while having a meltdown or my mother would dress me, and then she would hold my hand to walk me to school, and later on she got a licence, so she would then drive me to school and just put me in the playground and fuck off. And I'd just be in the playground having a meltdown until a teacher would be like, you need to go and get into line now, are you alright? And I would eventually calm down and get myself through school. And as such, I just very quickly learned this is something you deal with yourself. You try to stay quiet, you try not to be noticed, and you deal with it yourself. If you're at home, if you're in like, even in school, I ended up being, I got a lot of accommodations in primary school because I just couldn't cope with it. And for some reason that was just seen as something I needed to get over and not something we needed to investigate and see why I couldn't cope with being in school. So I had a lot of things like if I got too overwhelmed in class or during break time, I was allowed to go to the library, which no one else was allowed to do. So I would be in there on my own and be able to just read books and calm down myself. And obviously at home, I would just go to my bedroom. In primary school, everyone would be outside playing and then have to line up when the bell rang, and then that was when the teachers would come out and we'd be led into school. But I was allowed to arrive 15 minutes early and just go straight in and not have to mingle with the children. And I was also allowed to leave 5 minutes early, like 5 minutes before school ended. My teacher would be like, Dana, get your stuff together, go get your coat, you're going home. Because I couldn't handle being around the children. It would give me a meltdown. Like I wouldn't be able to cope with it whatsoever. So I very regularly had meltdowns as a child and was very much just taught that's something for you to go and deal with yourself and not to concern other people with. And even if you are completely distressed and overwhelmed in front of your family, in front of your parents, in front of your mother, no matter who is there, no one's gonna help you. No one's gonna do anything. There was a point when I was like probably 8 or 9, and we were upstairs in my brother's room, and there'd been some sort of like, there were constantly just arguments and niggles and my family like teasing me and then me overreacting to them being fucking horrible to me. So I assumed that's what had happened, and I was like sobbing and having a meltdown and having a horrible little time, and my mum turned to me and just went, God, you look ugly when you cry like that. And obviously it's the way that I cry when I'm having a meltdown. It's not the way that I normally cry when I'm just sad or having a bad time or not getting my way. It's the meltdown cry and the meltdown face and the sounds that I make. So that has stuck with me for life, and that's what I think every single time I fucking cry. I remember the look on my mum's face and the tone in her voice when she told me how ugly I am when I cry like that. So I massively learned, don't let people see you, don't let people hear you, don't let anybody know that you are experiencing this extreme emotional distress, because they will make it worse. They're not going to comfort you, they're not going to help you. They are actively going to just make you feel worse. They're going to make the situation worse. They're going to be cruel, they're going to be mean. There's no point allowing people to be a part of these moments or reaching out for any sort of safety or comfort, because I'm not gonna fucking receive it. Getting older and heading into high school, I'd essentially already been through like a whole buttload of trauma. My parents had moved us to Denmark and then back to the UK. I'd had a whole variety of change and bullying and neglect and abuse from my family, and I pretty much like shut down for a lot of my teen years. I don't remember them super well, it's really blurry. I mostly remember being on my own and just feeling really fucking sad and numb and like I didn't want to exist like all of the fucking time. And then every now and again, like the big one that I remember, I'd gotten this new bag, and it was one of those like leather satchel bags that were really popular in like 2012 when this was, and it was hot pink, and I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. And then this lad fucking, I really want to full name him because he was a fucking little twat, but I'm not going to because I'm nice. Okay, but this lad like just, I don't want to say he bullied me because he wasn't like as bad as the people I consider to have bullied me, but he did just consistently pick at me just because he could, just because he found it funny. And this specific day he'd gotten like all up in my space, and we like, it was some sort of like physical tussle, I don't fucking know, and I pushed him back and he grabbed onto my bag so that he didn't fall over, and my bag snapped and he laughed. And I just turned around and stormed off. I went into the bathroom and I had a meltdown. I was crying. I was definitely like making noise, which we'll come to in a bit. And I remember like headbutting the wall repeatedly in the like cubicle. So it wasn't like a hard solid wall, thankfully. But I remember sitting down on the toilet, like on the closed lid afterwards, and being like, what the fuck was that? Like, what was that? You know, like I'd had the times that I would hit myself, I'd had the times that I would like pull at my hair. By this point, I'd been self-harming in various other ways a lot of the time, which is, I think, also why I didn't have all that many meltdowns as a teenager, is that I would go and self-harm beforehand, and that's how I dealt with like big emotions, which obviously immensely unhealthy and horrible. And if I'd been at any point catered to and cared for during meltdowns, I don't think I'd have resorted to self-harm, to be completely honest with you. Like, I'd had a lot of other coping mechanisms and things that just popped up for me as a way to cope that felt a lot more normalised. They weren't healthy, they weren't normal, they weren't good, they weren't things that I should have been doing, but they were things that I'd seen represented in TV shows and in movies and heard other people my age talk about. So they felt like they were more normal, you know, like it's even like common sayings like, oh, I'm going to rip my hair out. So I would pull up my hair when I was having meltdowns, but that was the first time that I'd just repeatedly headbutted a fucking wall, and I was like, am I insane? Like, am I crazy? Like, what the fuck was that? What was that? I had no control over that. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who I am. It was a really confusing and fucked up moment for me to have as a teenager, and I never told anyone about it. I never talked about it. I never brought it up. It was just this like deeply shameful moment I had where I was like, I don't know who I am or why I react in the ways that I do, you know? And it was also around that time that I was having a meltdown in my room one night. I don't remember what it was over. I just remember I was having like an absolute time, and I was trying my best to be quiet because I was like semi-aware that I made sounds during those moments, but I was also like, it's a sob, I suppose. Like, that's how people cry. That's just the noise I make when I cry. And then there was this one night that I was like having a time, and my mum knocked on the door. Like, there was a knock on my bedroom door, and I was like, hello? And it was my mum, and she was like, can you stop making that noise? And I was like, I'm crying. And she was like, that's not how people cry, don't make that noise. And then just walked away like I just heard the footsteps leave. And I was just like, okay, fuck, sorry, shit. So that was when I was like, oh, the noises that I make in these moments aren't normal crying noises, so I need to never make a fucking sound while I'm upset ever again in my entire life. That's the accommodation here. That's how I started that. I'm never making another fucking sound while I'm upset. So for the majority of my teen years, I got real fucking adept to having fucking massive meltdowns in my room or in the bathroom and doing it completely silently, not making a fucking sound. I'm so good at being fucking quiet, or at least I fucking used to be. And of course, I then got with my horrible abusive ex at 16, and I didn't have cause for that many meltdowns most of the time while with him, because he was financially abusive. I didn't have any fucking money. I wasn't going anywhere or doing anything. I was just in the flat that we had, like, duh. But then he would come home from work and he'd be really fucking angry that I hadn't hoovered or tidied or done the fucking dishes or washed his clothes or whatever else. And he would start screaming at me. And I would sit there in silence with like tears streaming down my face, essentially having like absolute meltdowns, having absolute like they were horrible, abusive, traumatizing moments where he would just scream at me and scream at me and scream at me and scream at me. And then he would get upset and I would have to push down anything I was fucking feeling, anything he'd brought up for me, any way that he'd made me feel, so that he could apologise to me and I could tell him, no baby, it's okay, I understand that it's that I'm just so awful that I push you to this, I understand, it's okay, it's completely not your fault that you're abusing me, it's just that I'm so awful, I get it, it's fine. And then I'd make him dinner and get him settled with his show and whatever else, and I'd go into the bathroom and I'd have my shower and I'd just sit in the shower and I'd just like fucking bawl. And it was those times that like eventually, quite often, he'd get annoyed, knock on the door and be like, what are you doing in there? And I'd be like, shit, nothing, I'm getting out now. Because I would just completely lose track of time because I just... See, that's where I to be fair, I don't know if it was really so much a meltdown afterwards, so much as I was being abused and traumatised and I was having a time. But one of the big times that I definitely did have meltdowns while I was around that awful ex of mine was when we would go out and do something. We'd organise a date night, we'd organise a day to go and do something. And I did not once ever have a nice full day with this man after our like third or fourth date. Like he lured me in and then that was that. And every single time we went out, there would be some sort of issue caused by me, obviously. It was always my fault. It was always something I did, something I said, my behaviour, what I wanted. It was something to do with me that would just make him so angry and pissy, and then he would be really shitty to me, and then it would be my fault that the day was ruined by forcing him to be so shitty to me. And we'd get home, and like a lot of the times, he wanted a nice day, so he would just make me feel awful for ruining his day and then actually go on to have a nice day or a nice night or whatever we were doing. Like it would end on like technically a high note and we'd go home and we'd be sitting there and I'd just feel it fucking start. I'd feel like all of my muscles tightening and my throat starting to go funny, and then I'd start crying and he'd be like, why are you crying? We've had a nice day. And I'd be like, I don't know. I just feel like so not right, you know, like with the language and the knowledge that I have now, I was overwhelmed as fuck because I've been having to mask all day and like tiptoe around this man and try to make him happy and just walking on eggshells. No wonder I'm having a fucking meltdown once I'm in like the safe. But that's the thing, is like I've never felt safe in a fucking place that I lived, and I'm going to, when I move this time, I'm going to feel really safe and it's going to be lovely. But thus far, I've not lived in situations and lived with people that make me feel safe. So it's one of those things where like it wasn't technically a safe space, but it was the safest I was gonna fucking feel. So that's when the meltdown would start, and I'd be like, I have no idea why this is happening to me, I don't know what's going on. He'd be getting mad at me for crying after we've had a nice day, and it would just be this weird little like silent meltdown where I'd be like, no, I'm actually fine, I'm just crying. And obviously I was incredibly fucking overwhelmed. I'd been masking all day, of course I'm having like a weird little silent meltdown because I can't have a proper meltdown because I'm with my abuser. But it was just so bizarre, and that's one that I also had for like a majority of my life, and that is now like clicking with me that it's because it was a very similar thing with my parents. Even when we went out and did fun things and had nice days, there would be something that I did that just for some reason pissed off my mother, and then that she'd have to snap at me and be rude and be really mean, and then she'd be like, oh, you're gonna let that ruin the whole day, are you? And it's like, well, you sort of have ruined my fucking day, to be honest with you. But we'd again go on to have a technically nice day, so then I'm a freak and oversensitive and being silly for getting upset once we're home. And I'd be like, I don't know why I'm upset, I don't know why this is happening. And it's because I'd been fucking overwhelmed all day from having to pussyfoot around these people that were just mean to me for no fucking reason. Like just constantly on edge, constantly having to mask and being told that even the mask isn't good enough. Like of course I was having meltdowns after that. But it had gone from being the very like stereotypical sort of like what you expect a meltdown to look like when I was a child into like a sort of in between as a teen. As I like morphed into this like very bottle down your emotions, repress everything, shove it all down, just don't pay attention to it, don't make any fucking noise. It's fair enough we need to have a little cry and a release to get these emotions out, but no one else needs to know about it. And if things are really bad, yeah, we are gonna punch ourselves a little bit and pull our hair, and I don't really know what that's about, but no one else knows about it, so we can just pretend that it doesn't happen. Any meltdown that I had afterwards, I would just say that didn't happen. No one saw it, there's no proof, no one knows anything about it. And even while I was doing it, and even now there's always the little part of my brain that's like, bitch, what are you doing? You're faking this. You're being so silly right now. You're putting this on for an audience of literally no one. What's up with you? Why are you doing that? And it's like, I'm not fucking doing it. I don't want to be like that. I'm not enjoying myself. I'm not, like, it's for no reason. It's for no purpose. It's not for anybody. I'm not, like, I know I'm telling people about it now, but this is like years and decades later, you know? Like, it was never a performance. And yet in my brain, I'm like, why are you performing like this, babes? Why are you doing this? What's this about? And it's also frustrating because so often now looking back, I'm like, I can see exactly what it was about, but I was gaslit and fucking manipulated and told like, no, you're just being a sensitive little bitch. And it's been a weird one now because, and that's what I've maintained from the age of like 14 when my mum told me to stop making that noise. I've had completely silent meltdowns that no one would ever know about. I've not told people, I've not reached out for any sort of comfort, I've not reached out for help. I just go to my room or the bathroom, I lock myself in, and I have my silent fucking meltdown that no one's ever going to know about. And I've been fairly fucking satisfied with that, to be honest with you. I don't necessarily think it's the most ideal thing in the world, but no one's having a meltdown, so at least I'm being fucking quiet about it. But the thing is that in the months, my housemate moved out in April and now it's October, so in that time I've noticed that when I get upset, when I'm having meltdowns, when I'm like having a moment, when I'm having an emotion that is big, I'm going back to making noises. Like, I will be sat here like having my little meltdown and I'll be like, what was that? And then I'm like, oh, it was me. I'm making like, I don't want to describe them, they're my own personal noises. I tell you guys a lot of things about myself and that's not going to be one of them, but it's sounds and noises that I'm sure I probably made as a child, but that I'd very much fucking repressed and pushed down and gotten rid of, and now they're coming back out because, I mean, technically I know that my neighbours can hear me because I can hear my neighbours, but also they're not gonna fucking say anything, you know? Whereas like the housemates that I've had in the past, I can very much imagine them telling me to shut the fuck up in the same way my mother did. You know, that's the kind of people that they are. And it's one of those things where I do feel like it's probably realistically a positive that I'm unmasking that kind of thing about myself and actually being able to process things like that, and like just being able to naturally be myself is probably quite a positive thing. But it makes me feel a whole way, you know? And like, I don't want to create a new stigma or make anyone feel bad if that's what you've always done or whatever else, but it makes me feel silly. It makes me feel very childish. I don't like it, you know? It feels like I'm lacking some level of control over myself that I've previously had. And there's a point to which I'm like, oh yeah, well done, you're unmasking. And there's a point to which I want to feel like I'm in control of myself and my behaviour and the way that I act and the fucking noise that I make. I want to feel like I'm in control of that stuff. And during meltdowns, I feel like I'm regressing to a point where I can't control that. And I feel quite fortunate that us, like, up to this point so far, none of them have been the dramatic, like, angry, scared, unsafe sort of meltdown that has in the past resulted to me hurting myself. But I do have the concern of, like, if that happens again, am I going to, like, just fucking headbutt a wall? Like, you know, like, those periods felt so out of control and, like, I couldn't do anything about it. And it very much feels like I am slipping back into that. But I also have a lot of hope that I have learned some better fucking coping mechanisms in the last like 12 years. And I have people who I could reach out to now to talk to about things. And I also can't really imagine finding myself in those types of situations again because they were so caused by other people. And I just, if I think someone's an asshole, I'm not spending any time around them, you know? It's not like when you're in school and you just have to be around these dickheads every single fucking day. If I think someone's a twat and they're causing meltdowns, I'm just not going to be around them. That's why I'm putting myself into quite like a fucking terrifying financial situation to not have to live with someone again. But it's hard. And honestly, like the meltdowns that I have and the times that I feel like I'm not necessarily in control of my behaviour or like just my actions as a person is the scariest and the part of being autistic I probably like the least. Like, it really freaks me out quite a lot. I don't enjoy it and it makes me feel very vulnerable and very, like, at risk kind of thing, you know? Like, it's scary, especially as someone who has to deal with everything on my own. But yeah, that's the video. I don't think I have any more to say. I will say, I don't have any more to say, but I will say, I also haven't really discussed it so much in this video, but I have a lot of shutdowns a lot of the time. I think when I would have had a meltdown because I'm so like, repressive with my emotions and bottle things up and just push everything down and think about it later. And I also like have extremely delayed processing and often don't realise how upset I am about things or how angry I am about things until long after they've happened. So a lot of the times that I think I probably would have meltdowns if it weren't for that, I just have these shutdowns where I just sort of dissociate for like 3 hours and then snap back on and I'm like, shit, better be a person again. And I think that probably the more that I unmask, the more they will become meltdowns instead of shutdowns, and then I'll have to like better up my toolkit of how to deal with meltdowns, which I don't fucking adore, but it's steps and it's progress and it's doing what I can. And it does feel like quite often when unpacking autistic stuff, it's opening an absolute fucking box of worms and they go absolutely everywhere, and it's a fucking nightmare trying to like gather them all up and line them up into like an appropriate order. But I do think that's also sort of the only way to go about improving myself and my life. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm finally ready to stop talking now. So please do like and subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content. I also talk about my abusive family, and pretty much every Sunday I do a body doubling vid so that you can get something done along with me and have it in the background and not experience like a whole bunch of like PDA and crappy shit. So like and subscribe if you're into that. You can also find me over on Blue Sky, TikTok or Instagram. And if you want to help me out financially so that I can afford rent so that I don't live in this shithole, you can also find me over on Ko-fi or Patreon, but there is no pressure whatsoever. Do you want a quick look at Otis before I go? I woke him up because I'm a terrible owner. I'm sorry, my baby, but I'm not that sorry because you're cute. So whoever you are, wherever you are, if you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year, I am going to stroke Otis quite a lot now so that he doesn't get upset with me. And I'll see you again in a couple of days.